Hey, good morning. My name is Derek Stone with BigBookWizard.net, and we are going to launch into video number 2 of this very new season that I just relaunched. You might have seen some of the videos that I've done in the past. We did about 18 weeks of a big book study, and I'm reviving it, and we're starting over, and we're going to be in the doctor's opinion today. Sorry for the big white blankness on the screen here. Usually that's where I'd put the recap from the previous week, and I didn't have time to do it. Um, if you're watching this live from the link that I put out on my Patreon, welcome, good to see you. If you're watching the replay and you'd like to join us live, visit patreon.com/bigbookwizard, and I'll have a link in the description below. Also, I'll have a link for the contest that I'm running this month for Study Edition Big Book. You can win one of these for free. It's free to enter and it's free to win. I don't even charge you for shipping. If you win, I ship that out to you. Your choice of black or burgundy, hardcover, leather. I've got a whole video explaining the benefits of this book and all the cool stuff that's in it. And there's a link in the chat box, and there'll be a link in the description below. So just take a minute to wrap up. We read the first letter of the doctor's opinion regarding William Duncan Silkworth, his expertise in the field of alcoholism and addiction recovery, his treatment of some of the contributing authors to the big book, including Bill Wilson, and his statement that real alcoholics are A, hopeless, and then a paragraph later, his descriptor, his use of the word recovered in describing the progress that he had observed. And so those two words juxtaposed next to one another is pretty remarkable. And so that's kind of what we're looking at. And we're going to read the doctor's opinion is made up of 2 letters primarily. And what we're going to read today is the bit of narration that occurs between those 2 letters. So, the doctor's opinion isn't numbered correctly. It's in the Roman numeral section, so I don't even know how to tell you what page to reference, and I don't know that it would help you anyway. So what you want to do is you want to just flip past all the forwords in your book. If you've hit Bill's story, you've gone too far. It's the chapter right before Bill's story. I always joke that this is one of the ways that you know that the book was written by drunks, because the first chapter of the book is not chapter 1. So, okay, if you're there, you'll see that first page where it says to whom it may concern. And if you flip the page, we're going to be on the back of that. And after you see the signature of William Silkworth's name, you'll see the narration in between, and that's what we're going to pick up today. So this is, Bill writing and being edited by the first 100 men and women. So the physician who, at our request, gave us this letter has been kind enough to enlarge upon his views in another statement which follows. So he gives kind of a brief synopsis in that first letter. It's only a handful of paragraphs. And I can just see Bill getting that letter and reading it and being thoroughly dissatisfied and saying, well, thanks, Doc, for the effort, but can you go a little bit deeper? Can you give us a little bit more? And that is certainly what the second letter is. It's a couple of pages, and it goes really in depth into what alcoholism is, what the solution is as the doctor sees it, why the doctor feels powerless to implement the solution himself as a medical professional, and why he marvels and encourages real alcoholics everywhere, who he calls hopeless, to engage the program outlined in this book. And so that's pretty cool. It says, in this statement, he confirms what we who have suffered alcoholic torture must believe, that the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. And I've actually taken the time in my book to jot down every instance that I've found where the big book authors juxtapose body and mind. Or not, maybe that's the wrong word, but they pair those two things together. They talk about body and mind and body, physical and mental and physical. So I will actually post a list of those to go along with this video. I'll post an attachment maybe, or just a full post on the free section of my Patreon if you're interested in all those all those lines where they talk about body and mind. So the body of the alcoholic is quite as abnormal as his mind. Okay, so we're dealing with something that is, in fact, we can locate physically that there's a part of us that's different physically, not just mentally or even spiritually. Um, and actually, if you know me and you know my views and you've had any lengthy discussion with me, you know that I believe we're not all that different spiritually, but certainly mentally and physically different from our fellows. Okay, continue reading. It says, it did not satisfy us to be told that we could not control our drinking just because we were maladjusted to life, that we were in full flight from reality, or were outright mental defectives. These things were true to some extent, in fact, to a considerable extent, some of us, but we are sure that our bodies were sickened as well. In our belief, any picture of the alcoholic which leaves out this physical factor is incomplete. And I would agree. You know that this is something they had to zero in on back when this was written, because everybody, virtually anybody, could look at an alcoholic in the 30s and say, well, this person's in full flight from reality. They're suffering from a maladjustment to life. We might even say today, restless, irritable, and discontent. They're emotionally maladjusted. They haven't reconciled their past. We'll talk a lot about, sort of the mental aspects of recovery. And he's emphasizing, look, all that stuff is true, but we also have to acknowledge that something happens to these people when they drink alcohol that physically alters their level of desire for alcohol. Right? It's this phenomenon of craving that the doctor will talk about in the next letter. And so any picture that leaves out that physical factor is incomplete. Now, ironically, I would observe that if this were being written today, you can go to an arbitrary number of meetings in an arbitrary number of days and hear no shortage of data pointing to this physical factor. One is too many, 1,000's never enough. Don't drink the first one, you won't get drunk. Put the plug in the jug, don't drink no matter what. Like, you'll hear an abundance of data about those things. But oftentimes what's being left out today is the mental component. And back then, that was like just common. They just understood maladjusted to life. But today we tend to leave out that mental component, all the thought processes and struggles that occur prior to the first drink. And so I think it's a little ironic that they were emphasizing this back then, because people overlooked it. And I think today it will be a little bit different. What are your thoughts on that? Go ahead and leave me your opinions in the comments, and I'd love to read them. Okay, so the next paragraph. The doctor's theory that we have an allergy to alcohol interests us. Now, it's been pointed out to me, and through my own reading, confirmed that the Big Book authors in the 164 never outright use the word allergy. They never endorse it nor refute it. What they're saying right here is that that theory is interesting to us. They go on to say, as laymen, meaning as non-medical professionals, our opinion as to its sound, of course, mean little. Hey, we can't comment on, the word allergy, as far as I understand, medically speaking, means that the body produces histamines, and we can do a skin test for it. And, is that existing in any of us? Well, I don't know. I'm not a medical professional, but it's doubtful, right? So as laymen, as non-professionals, like, I can't speak to whether that's a medically correct term, allergy. Goes on to say, but as ex-problem drinkers, we can say that his explanation explains many things for which we cannot otherwise account. So as a non-medical professional, I can't speak to the soundness of the use of the word allergy from a medical perspective, but as an ex-problem drinker or as an alcoholic, I can absolutely locate the allergy model as an accurate analogy at the very least. It's an interesting analogy for this idea that, well, the layman's use of the word allergy simply means that when I ingest something into my system that I'm allergic to, a physical reaction that's adverse occurs that is not in keeping with the majority of people who ingest that substance. And that's certainly true of the alcoholic. Again, whether it's medically classifiable as an allergy or just classifiable as an allergy in layman's terms, That's up for more intelligent people than I to debate, and certainly more intelligent than big book authors. But it is an interesting theory, and it does serve as a good analogy to explain really stuff we can't account for, like the fact that, if I just wake up at 6 a.m. and make it to that business meeting at 7 and sign the paperwork, I'm sitting pretty and getting a fat paycheck. And at 10 p.m., I just want to have a drink to settle my nerves. And then I end up drinking till 4 in the morning and missing that appointment. How do I account for that? That's not a maladjustment to life. That's not a mental thing going on. That's a physical compulsion beyond my own control. And it's almost as if something's triggered inside of me once I ingest alcohol. And that's why the allergy analogy is so powerful, and it's a good representation, whether or not it's medically sound. Make sense? Okay. Next paragraph. Though we work out our solution on the spiritual as well as an altruistic plane, we favor hospitalization to the alcoholic who is very jittery or befogged. I believe they're talking about medical detox here. You can't safely medically detox on your own in a lot of cases, and an individual contemplating that is really well advised to seek out professional help, because a detox from alcohol can kill a person. And so we do favor hospitalization. We do partner with professional organizations from time to time, at the very least, to get a person through that medical detox. Whether or not you value the rehab industry as a whole, that's a whole different conversation. I'd love to hear your thoughts on that in the comments below. For sure, I'd love to entertain those and even respond to some of them. But you can't deny that what they're talking about here is some form of medical detox, and the role that doctors do play in those early stages of, you can't even call it recovery, just sobriety, right? Just drying out an alcoholic to the point that they can hear the solution. Goes on to say, more often than not, it is imperative that a man's brain be cleared before he is approached. He has then a better chance of understanding and accepting what we have to offer. And that's certainly true in my experience, that a person who is under the influence currently probably can't work the steps. A person who is convulsing and shaking due to delirium tremens probably has difficulty working the steps, although we do have historical data that shows that a lot of the people working the steps in the early days were shaking so badly that they couldn't write their own fourth step. Sponsors were writing them for them, even though they weren't called sponsors, but that's a whole different discussion. So, there is a case for, letting the body clear out and detoxify so that the mind can fully absorb the spiritual solution that's being presented. So that's essentially the end. Let me just double check in my book. This is the text that I typed up. There might be one more line that he says before the next letter begins. Yeah, the doctor writes. That's all he says. So that's all we're going to cover today. I think that's enough. I think I find that the shorter these videos are, the more digestible they are. I could talk for hours on end on this stuff, and I have on several occasions, but I want to make this information digestible. So I'm going to go ahead and sign off there. Just a friendly reminder, study edition big book available for free if you sign up for the contest. If you're viewing this video on Facebook, you can get a second entry into the contest. In addition to submitting your email address via the link, you can get a second entry by liking, sharing, and commenting on this video. Or just click the link below and enter your information. U.S. residents only for right now. Maybe that'll change, but for right now, U.S. residents only, please. And that's it. If you feel like supporting this channel, you can visit patreon.com/bigbookwizard. That link will be in the description as well. And until next time, God bless.